Resenting wife, 36 female, after Thanksgiving, and every holiday meal, 31 female. I get really upset after holiday meals. My spouse, 36 female, is super into cooking and spends weeks planning, thinking about, deciding Thanksgiving dinner. She also always supervises in the kitchen when I am cooking and can't resist offering her opinions and best practices. It feels so stifling. I've stopped cooking because it's now always an opportunity for her to impose her opinion on something I used to enjoy. For example, I love mashed potatoes but wasn't allowed to make them this year because she decided on a specific recipe at the last minute and I guess I didn't have enough skill to pull it off. So she made every single thing for Thanksgiving but the gravy, which I made from scratch because she got too overwhelmed with everything else. Half of dinner was cold and she got super stressed out. Yet she can't plan out a simple dinner with 2 sides unless I remind her about ingredients, time to make each dish, etc. She has ADHD so can collect recipes but can't coordinate when each dish will be done, for example. She's an amateur, but good, chef and wants to start her own cooking business one day despite not having any business savvy and also being physically disabled, unable to work on her feet all day. I am the family breadwinner and work 10+ hours a day easy. So she does cook some days and also works an easy job. This Thanksgiving she could not resist nitpicking literally everything I did, from chopping to cleaning things to pie crust making. And then she frames my errors as housekeeping mistakes. I spent time on a pie crust and forgot about a candle in the bathroom, easily cleaned and still aesthetically pleasing. My dad is in town and I've been spending a lot of time mediating between her idea of a good time and his. Of course, I'm always expected to clean anything she makes. Should I just leave her be? Encourage her dreams of being a cook, chef, food business owner despite her inability to budget or work on her feet every day. Edit. Few words for clarity. TL. Dr. Wife has ADHD and a special passion for cooking that ends up me shut out of the kitchen but expected to clean. What would you do? Am I an asshole? She is a great cook. To add, she loves food, and we end up eating out most weekdays. She talks about food and how to make it all the time. Any meal she makes takes 1+ hours, easily 2 for dinners. I have a history of eating disorders spanning back 20 years like many women my age and feel very trapped talking, thinking about food 24/7. No. You need harmony in your home, and micromanaging is not helpful. I personally hate it and a couple times I just stopped cooking mid-meal and turned off the burners and left. It's unacceptable. You wanna cook? Then cook. Otherwise, let me do it. FFS. Sorry, there's a lot of issues mentioned in your post, and I'm confused about your question. Is it 1. How to choose by the way her and your father? 2. Support her in her business idea or not? 3. Address her constant criticism of your cooking? 4. Address her poor cooking management when she cooks? Does it make you uncomfortable that your wife has some control over such tiny fraction of your life? From the way you described her, it seems like you think she's incapable of doing a lot of things and that conversely you are the control freak. I don't want to make any assumptions, but if you're the breadwinner and she's working an easy job, I'm sure she wants to contribute by at least making a nice meal for you. Not to get too much into gender roles, but instead of feeling emasculated, she might feel defeminized because the one thing you give her some autonomy in, cooking meals, you still want to have some control over. Next year she does Christmas and you do Thanksgiving whilst the other rests, or you clean up after each other to share the load. Be honest, tell her she is spoiling it for you and your dad, and that won't make for a nice day no matter how great her mashed potatoes are. I mean, I have ADHD, but I worked around kitchens long enough to know that the burger needs to be put on the grill before the fries. You guys should have a dinner party. I think it would be a lot of fun, a couple days before, for y'alls to deep dive into what recipes require certain things and how to accommodate. Plan out what needs to be done the day of, but also what you can prep the day before, without guests present. She might feel more included. I feel for both you and her, Eve, though it might be difficult and might require a couple of convos about communication. Y'alls can move into unabashed truth territory. All the best. Keep us updated. I'd cautiously support her. ADHD people tend to give up when frustrated, and if there is an additional element of physical pain, I doubt I could work baker's hours without being in pain before factoring in a disability. My boyfriend started doing this with cooking. Every little thing he would watch and criticize me and say the way that he would do it. It was bothering me so much, and telling him didn't change anything. So I decided when I would cook, as soon as he said a single word about my cooking, chopping, anything, I would put the knife down and leave. Just go watch TV in the other room without a word. He doesn't do it anymore. The nitpicking may be coming from a place of insecurity in herself. My wife is terrible about hovering and giving unasked for advice when we cook together. I sternly and respectfully tell her, don't micromanage me if you want my help. It's a team effort, not boss-employee. She needs the reminder, but after usually realizes my frustration and backs off, and we do fine. Nothing wrong with calling out the frustration in the moment. This is a pretty clear communication and appreciation issue. Couples therapy. This will continue to fester every time you two do any sort of entertaining or even cooking for yourselves. Can't you just take turns in the kitchen? One cooks, the other cleans. And switch off. Have you talked to her about any of this? I used to always try and help my husband in the kitchen, but he hated it and felt like I didn't trust him to do things correctly. To be fair, I don't, because sometimes it's a total disaster. He told me so, and I no longer offer help anymore. I leave him alone in the kitchen unless he specifically asks for help. If something fails or doesn't turn out the way he wanted it to, that's on him now. He still occasionally ruins a pot or pan, but it's much easier for me to replace a pan than his animosity towards me for butting in. In my experience, there's only room for one chef in the kitchen. Everyone else is a sous chef, prepping and receiving direction. The women in my family are very passionate about preparing family meals, and I've worked in a number of professional kitchens. With that said, there are men in my family who really enjoy cooking dishes a certain way. But if they want to do so, they have to do more than show up the day of the meal and offer to make it. I think a lot of people underestimate the work it takes to meal plan and gather ingredients and etc. If you want to have more say in how or what things are cooked, get in on it earlier, not the day of. Haha, why not let her do her thing? If you love to make mashed potato, make it every day. Let her enjoy herself and show off her cooking skills. If my husband loved to cook, I'd let him cook for me every single day. It's a blessing. About the cleaning, buy a dishwasher or let her help you, and no, you do not have to clean. If she wants to cook, it's her choice, but cleaning afterwards should be something you both agreed on. For example, you clean every other day and she's the same. Have a talk with her about this. I have realized that since I do most of the cooking whenever my husband does, I try to micromanage him. So I just stay out while he's cooking. I just don't even do in there so I can keep myself from doing it. Your wife needs to do this also. Honestly, I would just let her prepare the entire meal herself and do it all herself without any help. Don't remind her about anything or cook anything. Let her see what happens when she does it all herself. Lol, she will come to a realization that she was being too hard on you. I was super critical of my husband when he was cooking. I knew everything because I've been cooking since I was 14 and he didn't, and I was quick and he was slow. I would always try to tell him how to do certain things or offer advice, until one day he just started saying, I don't want or need your advice. If I want or need one, I will ask you. And he just repeated it until I backed off. I was killing his joy of cooking, and it clicked after he started that practice of telling me to back off. Sure, I was pissy about his not appreciating my input, but then I learned to let him cook as he wants to. He's still slower than me, but he's getting better, and I learned to snack while he's cooking our supper. Encourage her. I'm a 26F chef, and let me tell you, this industry is crazy and fuck. There are so many crazy chefs that loves to just give order without listing that if your wife start working in the industry, she may understand what you feel when she give you advice. Also, she may realize that professional cooking is not for everyone and start to relax about how she is in the kitchen. You're letting resentment build without communication. Bad husband move. People starving in Africa. Third world problems. It does not seem like you like her. That's also a problem. No offense, man, but at least she nitpicks you directly to your face. You two don't have to eat each other's food to love each other. If it's your recipe, she doesn't have to eat it, and vice versa. She is being too overbearing in the kitchen. I would be driven crazy by this behavior. If you want this to be a together activity, you need to take more ownership of your part of the meal. And when she oversteps her bounds, just remind her how much personal joy you derive from cooking as well, and you are excited to cook these mashed potatoes your way. If she can't respect you enough, then you have a much bigger problem, because she isn't listening and she is too wound up in this perfect dinner that no one really cares that much about, i.e. most people are more excited about the together time than having a perfectly executed feast. Tell her what you want, need her to do. Be firm. At first there is going to likely be a tiny argument, but it can be smoothed over. Every single married couple since the beginning of time has had a kitchen argument. Probably in cave people times Grog and Og were arguing over how to best cut the mammoth open and start fire. I basically have to kick my wife out of the kitchen and she me. We cook mostly independently and it works for us. Whether she has ADHD or not, she's a grown adult who presumably loves you, so she can find it in herself to stop nitpicking your cooking. Set some reasonable boundaries. When you cook, you don't want advice unless you ask for advice. If there are household things you're doing that bother her, did you leave a candle burning unattended? She can tell you about them, but not while you're in the middle of cooking. When she plans a holiday meal, she needs to limit herself to a certain maximum number of recipes. And so on. Ultimately you gotta just let her do her thing if she isn't going to let you help. Just go do something else to prepare. If she can't handle one meal I doubt you have to worry too much about her starting a restaurant or whatever, so you might as well be supportive. Dude, just grow a pair. I am cooking this, I don't need help or advices. Thank you. If your dad is in town, spend time with him, she can do something else. You're deaf an asshole if you're not willing to clean. But if you don't like the food, then just start meal prepping and cooking for yourself. She seems to gather self-worth out of the activity. Don't really know why you bring up the work stuff other than to invalidate her. Stating her job is easy makes it seem like you don't respect her for it. Let her dream. Encourage her. If she wants to start a business, then help her figure out what she needs to do. Leaving her and her ADHD to figure it out sounds like a disaster, and I would personally get frustrated with a lack of progress, lol. Are you saying forgetting about a candle in the bathroom to the point it makes some kind of mess that needs to be cleaned up isn't a mistake? I mean, I don't think that's just her framing it as a mistake. That pretty objectively sounds like a mistake. It actually could potentially even be dangerous, though you don't describe exactly what happened, just that you forgot about it and it left a mess that had to be cleaned up. It's also weird to call a mess that needs to be cleaned aesthetically pleasing. Anyways, if cooking is her passion that she wants to start a business from, could you just let her be the one who does the cooking? That way she won't micromanage you because it will just be her job. This doesn't seem that big, more of a mountain out of a molehill. Why can't you plan the meals together? And I mean plan out what has to be done. If dinner in the table means 2 p.m., then plan out a timetable. Not insanely, but more mashed potatoes takes 15 minutes to prep, 10 minutes to cook and then 10 minutes to mash. Then plot out the time. What seems innate to you is not in her wheelhouse. But instead of making it a collaboration, it's turned into a cold war. Let go of the resentment and have a conversation. Or this is just symptomatic of a bigger issue. I don't know, but we all get on each other's nerve at times. Mashed potatoes just seems like a weird hill to die on. KWIM. You two could really benefit from couples therapy. There seems to be a lot of resentment brewing on both sides. No. You should tell her to get out of the kitchen when you cook. There's a saying about too many chefs ruin the broth for a reason. And besides, it's not about the food, it's about your feelings. Years ago, I got so tired of being nitpicked about my balcony plant that I threw it off and never touched another plant. This, despite having had an apartment full of plants before meeting this person. Don't let that happen. And don't worry about the chef business. It's hard to get that shit together. It's a good test for how you would run a business, and she probably won't. No need to be critical at this point. People just talk, doesn't mean they can or will ever do it. Sounds like she's projecting how she wants to be a boss in the future upon you in the now. She just needs to have a real talk with you about this, and she needs to hear you. I often feel the pressure to make everything picture perfect and get lost thinking everyone is as critical as my home cooking as I am. I am often guilty of passing this pressure onto my partner, and it really helps when he reminds me of the reality. Often stuff like, did you check behind the TV for dust at my brother's house? No, so relax. Or, did you think that Jill's bathroom needed more candles? Of course you did, you were too busy having a nice time. So relax. She is not a great cook if half of the resulting meal can't be enjoyed, it was cold. That also means her customers will not be happy and her business will suffer if not go bankrupt altogether. I read your first paragraph and went, oh, she has ADHD, then saw it in the next paragraph. She's likely well aware of her shortcomings and puts pressure on herself to make the big meals perfect. Logic doesn't really apply here. You need to talk about how you can both manage the big occasions as a team. I'm not sure what sort of help your wife is getting on the ADHD side of things, but a good therapist can help navigate some of this stuff. I know it's tricky, but I'm sure you can work together to find a solution. Maybe stick with designated dishes. Let her know it's important for you to contribute as well. And maybe the cooking business won't eventuate, or maybe it will, but either way she is allowed to dream of it. My significant other has severe ADHD, and although his symptoms don't present in the same way as your wife's, he definitely has some habits that I had a hard time dealing with. He was really unaware of how annoying he could be about certain things, until I sat down with him and explained my frustrations in a loving and supportive way. It was definitely difficult for him to hear, but it opened the door for us to be able to discuss aspects of each other that needed improvement. It wasn't just about his hang-ups. We worked through it. Try this. Communication can work wonders. Could it be maybe since she has a physical disability that makes working all day hard, she feels like this is the only thing she can do. So having someone else without her problems do it as well makes her feel kinda useless.